thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I talk about Captello all the time because a lot of our clients utilize it in their booth strategies. So I really want to dig into some inspiration with you, all right? But before we do that, tell me a little bit about your experience with Exhibitor Live this year. Is this your first one?
This is my first one. So I joined Captello about 3 months ago.
Oh my goodness, we're really throwing you in on the deep end.
Absolutely. But it's been wonderful because I come from the Fortune 50 company side of it. So a lot of the applications and the way things move there is very monolithic. So I love the fast-paced field here. You can bring a lot of change very quickly, and that's been very exciting. And Exhibitor Live has just been wonderful. It's one of our larger shows. We get to meet a lot of our customers here. So it's just an opportunity for us to learn and adapt, and as we transform, see what we can do better to help make their process, their life a little bit easier.
Is there anything that is, come about so far? You've only been here a couple days, right? We're just kind of throwing you in there. What has really stood out to you about event marketing here? Have you learned anything that has been something you weren't expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 3 things come to mind first and foremost. Is one, there seems to be a little bit of uncertainty and fear, especially with the changes economic-wise about future events and things like that. So companies are becoming a little bit more hesitant to plan a little bit longer term because they don't know what the outcome is going to look like. Sure. So there's that piece to address just in general. The other one, too, is the access to data. Data is becoming king. So most companies we talk to they utilize less than 20% of their data in general. So I think understanding, the metrics, what things make sense is becoming incredibly important for them in general. And then there's also, we're seeing a lot of consolidation in this space as well. So that's making an effect, whether it's VC-backed acquisitions, etc. So we're trying to adjust around that. But it's been a great, feedback system from that perspective, for sure.
Good. Now, let's dig into a little bit more of the technology with Captello.
Absolutely.
I think from a high-level view, do you want to kind of introduce what it is, how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So Captello is an end-to-end platform. We specialize from everything from the event management space to lead capture to meeting management to the interaction and the actual gamification side of it. So engagement is a big key, attracting folks. And one of the key items we're working on this year is unifying all these data points into something that you can convert and utilize and create reports on, so you can see what is the ROI on these events, so you can justify, especially with that fear and uncertainty that's coming into place.
So a lot of event marketers see the value in what Captello does, but there's a couple things that can seem overwhelming or daunting, right, when trying to introduce this. One, introducing it into leadership. What are the conversations that need to be had? And then 2, the implementation. So I think we could start with maybe some advice on, somebody that really wants to implement something like Captello on the floor and through their event program for the year, and how could they really leverage a certain conversation or what to say to leadership to get the buy-in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts down to, or it comes down to, as users, as our interact or go to these events, there's a lot of manual work that has to happen, right? And then there's also a missing gap in terms of what information you can capture and what action you take on. It can be almost overwhelming. Like I said, most companies are not taking advantage of the data side of it. So as users approach leadership from that perspective, I think it's incredibly critical that they focus on why they're here in the first place, which is enable sales, right? So for us, it's enabling that end-to-end sales, bringing people into your booth just to make best value of it, creating fun and dynamic things like we do with the Morphique side of it. But then I would take that a step further. Is right now there's a disconnect between how we handle events, but also how we do field sales in general. And what we're trying to do is unify these two. So whether you're here capturing leads or whether you're meeting with a doctor's office because you want to sell pharmaceuticals, or you're trying to market just a new concept, it's very critical that you can kind of take that information, record it, but also have actionable insights that come to it. So I'll give you a quick example. When our team can capture a lead, you can take a voice note, but one of the items that becomes powerful is being able to take action on the data that's in there. Right. So instead of going, if you're a field sales rep, most of the time you're going door, you're doing all the hard work, doing the face-to-face meetings, but then you still have hours of data entry at the end of it, data hygiene.
No one wants to enter all their data into their CRM. That's the
into your CRM, without a doubt. So we're automating all of that, right? And so we are becoming a true data transformation company, data hygiene. So we want to take and orchestrate it all in a way that actually makes a lot of sense. Every company has different requirements. For example, one of our customers here, has big data governance, requirements that we have to be able to maintain and support. So giving them the tools and the platform to enable something like that is something that we believe is very important. And just a differentiator for what we do and how we set that up. And the last piece that I will touch on when it comes to really why it makes sense from an executive leadership is meetings. Meetings make sales happen at the end of the day. So how do you enable that next step? And then once you have a meeting, how effective was it? The information that you captured, whether through the voice communication, whether through the conversation, the sentiment analysis that comes from that, all that could be missed. So we want to make sure we can capture it and enable that automatic routing based on sentiment analysis, based on the buyer, and be able to truly integrate that in a much simpler way than you do that today. And like I said, take it all the way to the field sales side of it. Doesn't matter which vertical that you're in.
As a marketer myself, right, this is all, everyone, the marketing teams always want as much data as we can get, right? But then what do you do with it? And how are we driving and proving, right? The conversions are happening and we're saying and doing the right things to really build a relationship. And it's a story. I always say, how many touch points has to happen? It's on average, 12 touch points before you even get a marketing conversion. So you think of all of those touch points really tell the lifeline and the relationship that you get. And we all know that events are where those face-to-face relationships are happening. And so making a busy sales team, making it easier for them to collect the data is really powerful.
Collecting the data is half the challenge in so many ways. A lot of times it's making sense of that data in a way that where customers don't have to build their own data lakes or put their own machine learning pipelines in order to make sense of it. So we try to automate so much of that for them, and that's really one of our goals. I mean, we're users of these tools and these technologies ourselves. Our field sales team uses it. So I think it's incredibly critical that we not just capture it, but also present it in a way that makes sense. Track, like you said, that customer journey all the way from first interaction all the way to closure. Also, how do you know, based on previous interactions? We had somebody like, I don't get visibility for how many customers visited me in the last event, for example, right? So if somebody has come to your booth multiple times through multiple events, these are strong buying signals. So that's why we're developing that real-time engine, real-time event engine within our company. So this way, as somebody's walking up to you, as you scan them, then you have all the relevant information at your fingertips so you can take it to the next steps, especially talking points, historical information, context from all interactions they've done. But also as an exhibitor, how are you doing compared to everybody else, right? So we're introducing features and capabilities that do heat mapping that shows like how effective is your marketing compared to the rest of the team, for example. Yeah, so you're able to scan a QR code if you're an exhibitor. You can give them a digital briefcase of information that you can send to them, and then marketing gets direct feedback from there because it's like, all right, compared to everybody else, how effective was your marketing material? Which piece was actually most relevant, most utilized, most clicked on, which I think is very powerful information, so you can kind of keep down that trend or investigate why that's different.
That's great. Now let's talk about implementation.
Sure.
In our experience, we've seen a really great ease of implementation, but I think it's important to kind of relay that to event marketers that want to do this. It seems daunting at first, of like, oh man, we're going to implement this whole strategy. First, we got to get the buy-in, but then we got to actually do it and build it.
No doubt.
So what are some quick tips or just a quick walkthrough of what it's like for implementation?
Yeah, so I can tell you we work with companies that are a startup and just getting funded, all the way to Fortune 50 companies that have very strict guidelines and security reviews and things like that. And we've developed a very good process over the last, almost 2 decades of being in this industry. One of the things that's differentiated, even though we're a big advocate of AI, we still love the human element of things. So you pick up the phone and there's humans that answer it. Our support team is wonderful and dedicated. Our SLA times are small. So this is meant to make the customer feel a lot more comfortable and be able to give you the support that you need right then and there, especially at events when time matters, where a minute feels like an hour in so many cases. So in terms of how we go about it, we onboard folks to a couple of different processes. One is there's a project management team that, collects the information relevant to you, what integration points make sense to you, and then, what components you want to map, and we walk you through that process from beginning to end. And then we hand you off to our client success team that stays with you the whole time just to make sure you're onboarded successfully, everything is working like it needs to. If you need on-site support, that's also available, so we can be right there with you at your event. So it's really end-to-end and down to whatever you need from that perspective.
So easy.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
So we're at an event for event marketers.
Yep.
I got to talk a little bit about your gamification because that's a hot topic.
Absolutely.
What are your top 3 ready to go type of games that you've got?
Yeah, so our photo booth, our Morphique photo booth is one of the more popular ones, which is where you can take a picture of somebody. For example, Easter is coming up, so we have a lot of folks that are like, hey, we're going to have kids coming to this event, and that's what it's focused on. And we had a soccer club one, so you're able to take a picture of somebody. There's an you become an Easter bunny, there's eggs all around, so that's perfect. And then we also have specialized use cases. Some folks want to create, for example, trading cards, of somebody's face and have it like an official trading card. So if you're into sports or whatever theme you want to to do, those are things we can absolutely support. Scavenger hunt becomes one of the other ones as well. And so you're able to kind of essentially, we have some hotel chains that want people to learn more about what they do and how they do it. So it's quite a bit interactive from that perspective. And like I said, we have 50 more that come up,
Of course, there's so many ideas that you can kind of, come from. But I think it's also important to know that not only do you have like a lot of prepackaged kind of ready to go options, there's so much that you guys can do to customize what they're really trying to accomplish on the trade show floor.
Absolutely. It's fully customizable, fully brandable in a lot of ways. And it's meant where that interaction point, whether it's a game where the leaderboard score, to be able to compare how well you're doing with everybody else, you're able to pull these reports and you're able to essentially compare, but also these are valuable leads and touch points for future times. And we don't forget that. We keep track of that just so your team can, take action on that when relevant. So at the end of the day, engagement is key, including all the way to the social side of it, whether it's LinkedIn QR codes, being able to allow people to connect, whether it's through, NFC bracelets or your own digital business cards.
Yep.
All that are things we support. Plus, you can create an exhibitor profile, for example. Like I said, somebody goes to you, they can scan that, pull up information, see what things you offer, get in touch with sales. However you want to customize that is something we fully support, including the scavenger hunt. You can customize your own questions and path.
Make a whole episode on all of the cool things that you could do on the floor.
Absolutely.
That would be really fun to do.
That would be the goal, without a doubt.
Okay, one last question.
Sure.
Okay, going into you're just kind of being thrown into event marketing now, right? What's one piece of advice that has really stuck to you as you've been getting into this?
One piece of advice. Like I said, one of the key items actually that's been a little bit different is as AI has really transformed how we actually process and how we go to market, right? Data has become king in a lot of ways, and people are raising and putting up barriers in general between it. So for me, it's making use of the actual data that you have, leveraging maybe the data points that you've collected over your history, and being able to put that into something that understands it so you can take action on it. A lot of companies don't, miss the chance or miss the opportunity that's in front of them. You've already had a lot of meetings. People have notes everywhere. Are you take action on that? Like, how are you analyzing and processing that and taking next steps following through? So I would say look at what you have today and see how you can enhance it and enrich it so with those data points that are critical to you.
So often the sales team is really focused on what's in front of them right now. And so the marketing team spent a lot of time and energy putting out branding and legitimizing the company and driving leads, and you have all of these conversations. Well, a year later, you still have that data. You still own all of that those contact records. And so the question is, how do you re-engage with them? How do you reutilize that data? So popping it into some sort of AI analytic tool to kind of tell you who your audience is, being able to do targeted ads, being able to go to old events, right? And say, hey, you were here last year. You're going to be here this year. This is what we've got going on. We'd love to connect with you.
Yeah, and it's critical that we stop looking at how many leads I captured, but more about how relevant is that to my bottom line and revenue at the end of the day, because that's what makes the difference, right? Sure. But the problem is that it's been complex to do that in a lot of ways. And that's why we want to simplify that. We already connect. We have hundreds of integrations, right? We connect to all CRMs out there, including custom ones. So we want to be able to have you bring that information in. We'll analyze it in addition to everything else and give you the actionable insight that makes sense, that track the journey. Because like I said, you might have missed a lot of data points early on. So I would say, look at your current data trends, identify, if you can, what makes sense to you and what are the key metrics you want to do, but start focusing more about, the impact from a pipeline perspective versus how many leads, how many business cards, et cetera, that I want.
This has been a wonderful conversation. You did really great. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Totally rocked it.